Digimon Survive was a game that, on the day of its release, managed to displace stay from its run in the Steam sales chart. Although it settled in the third place overall, the long-awaited release of Digimon Survive was a big event for the fans of this famous franchise. But at the same time, the game has been bombarded with negative reviews on Metacritic. Some say it's almost the best project in the series, while others call it the worst. Where do these conflicting opinions come from, and what is this game all about? Digimon is a large and significant Japanese franchise, a direct competitor to Pokemon. It all began back in '70. With the release of Virtual Pass, a year later came the first full-fledged video game, and from 19, the numerous anime series and movies that have become popular worldwide began, and so it when related products, toys, merchants, bringing billion-dollar profits, and so on. Naturally, over the year an incredible number of games came out, but recently the flow began to dry up. We saw mostly online and mobile projects. The story ones didn't get along, and as I said, the development of Digimon Survive has been stalling. But before I talk about the new game, I would like to point out that Digimon for many people is a glowing childhood memory of watching their first TV series in the early 90s. They were drawn in a childish sort of style. Unlike, for example, Evangelion, which also has children and big robot-like monsters, and told simple stories at first. Kids get into digital worlds where they meet good digital monsters, who become their partners and friends, and fight the bad ones together to save the real world. So, a lot of people, and me included, when I first started learning about this world, had an attitude, "Oh, for the kids," but in reality it's far from that simple. As a Digimon evolve, so have the TV series movies. Sure, they didn't get to the level of Berserk and the same Evangelion, and they weren't going to, but I could barely hold back tears in the final of the 2020 film Adventures of Digimon: The Last Evolution. The theme of contradiction between the need to grow up and the desire to remain a child is shown here is very strong and emotional way. After all, as children grow up and lose their desire to evolve and learn new things, they lose touch with the Digimon, and those who have become like family to them disappear. This theme is also reflected in Digimon Survive, which in some ways look like an evolution of typical Digimon games. A great deal of attention is paid here to plot characters and emotions. At the same time, the story goes into dark horror territory, which has never been seen before in the series. And generally speaking, this is the first and foremost an epical visual novel, and only then a tactical RPG and collecting pets. Therefore, those whose ability came here for the last two things were disappointed and began to criticize the project for having too many letters. There are too many letters that annoyed me too at first. Yes, the character and the story are kind of new, but everyone understands everything. It's unlikely that newcomers will look into a game like this out of ignorance. The same themes, motifs, recognizable characters even in appearance. The main character's name is not Taichi Yagami, but Takuma Momozaka, but he is very similar to his predecessor and also wears fine glasses. Similar situation and even direct quotes. A group of school children went on excursion, got lost, got it seems into a parallel world where their school was abandoned, encountered an unknown threat and met some unseen beasts. No one here calls them Digimon, but again, everyone understands everything and is happy to recognize the dinosaur Agumon. So when we have long argued, these fall into truth, and the kids with fight and big eyes 20 times shoot. God, who or what is it? And what were in a parallel world? And they're talking? Of course, it's annoying. But the farther you go, the more interesting it gets. More interesting in terms not of the novelty of the scenario, but in terms of what sometimes shocking and not at all childish consequences our decision can lead to. This by communicating with one of the characters, more or less taking sides in arguments and so on, we strengthen or not strengthen the connection with them, and this directly affects which of them will or will not die. Also, the story depends on Takuma's character formation. Our action and responses in the dialogues are reflected in the spirit, anger and harmony indicators, considering that all the characters, despite the enemy cliches, turned out to be interesting in their own way. And that is certainly shocking and make us realize how much Digimon this game has evolved compared to the typical Digimon. Yes, the moments of exploration where we are forced to use the phone camera or the cursor to look for active points that will lead to advancement in the story or the discovery of a new consumable equipment item seem simple and monotonous, but there's nothing quite ridiculous. Typical exercise for quests and adventures. Another thing is that many have came here for a different genre, but as a tactical RPG, Digimon Survive is competitive. Battles take into account the difference in elevation. Attacks from the back or flank do more damage. Before the fight you can arrange the characters. Pets get levels, learn skills, you can hang crystals on them, giving bonuses to characteristics, or for example allowing to save up more experience. Both friendly and alien have indicators of resistance to the elements, and all participants in the battle with each other according to the classic principle of rock, paper, scissors. The lack of characteristic Japanese tactical RPG, wide choice of classes, which can be changed almost on the fly, comprehended by the abundance of paths and the system of their evolution, which allows you to take different forms. In addition, here, as in the series Shin Megami Tensei, you can directly in battle to communicate with monsters and with the right lines to lure them to your side, adding to the piggy bank of the new paths. Also, the guys who are connected to the Digimon can encourage them during battles, which increases their characteristics or heals them. Yes, there are fewer battles than dialogues, and the enemies don't offer any resistance at all, but first of all the developers initially talk about a hybrid of visual novel and the tactical RPG, and secondly, no one forbids playing on the highest difficulty. Believe me, from the 9th chapter onwards the evening will cause to be languid. Digimon Survive is a game for fans, but nevertheless it wasn't afraid to offer change that many fans didn't like. Perhaps they simply did not understand the very idea about growing up, which was emotionally shown in Digimon Adventure: The Last Evolution. The authors, according to its logic, are just the same kids who still have potential because they are willing and ready to evolve, to strive for something new, which means that Digimon are still with them. So, to sum up, plot of the game is fascinating story where our action and decision affects a lot, vivid characters, interesting tactical battles, and the game looks and sounds great. And cons, some dialogues and scenes drag on too low difficulty in the first third of the campaign.